Trade time might be the final time you make any trades this season as trade deadlines are approaching, but I'm bringing you 5 must-buy players for Week 11 fantasy football. And we started off with player number 1. It's going to be Malik Neighbors for the New York Giants. And yes, Malik Neighbors, when we look at his overall stats, he had that concussion in Week 5 versus Seattle versus after, is almost 2 different players. And so it's been night and day for Malik Neighbors and this overall performance. Like we said, he's the wide receiver 10 on the year, but coming in, he's got a bye in Week 11. So whoever is owning Malik Neighbors, I definitely feel like they're feeling a little bit down. But if we look at the schedule going kind of into the playoffs, Week 12 versus Tampa Bay, Week 13 versus Dallas, Week 14 versus New Orleans, Week 15 versus Baltimore. Before that Baltimore game, really great matchups for Malik Neighbors, Weeks 12 through Week 14. And I understand Malik Neighbors is not going to be cheap because he's been super elite for a rookie level wide receiver. I would love to take a look at what some of these trades for Malik Neighbors could look like. We started off here with the first one. We got Malik Neighbors, Russell Wilson, Tank Bigsby traded for Ricky Pearsall, Isaiah Pacheco. Clearly, that is a deal where you want the Malik Neighbors side there. Malik Neighbors and Tyrone Tracy for David Montgomery, Tyler Bass, Tucker Kraft. Of course, you're taking the Malik Neighbors, Tyrone Tracy side. Malik Neighbors for Devontae Smith, Calvin Ridley. Give me Malik Neighbors. Mike Evans and James Cook for Malik Neighbors and Jonathan Taylor. Give me the Malik Neighbors side. Malik Neighbors for Devontae Smith. Go give me Malik Neighbors side. This one's interesting down here at 11-11. That happened yesterday. We got Malik Neighbors, Breece Hall traded for Saquon Barkley. I might be in the minority here, but I want the Malik Neighbors and Breece Hall side there. So there are 100% deals that you can be doing for Malik Neighbors. I think he's an absolutely great buy low at his current market price. Like we said, not all trades. You're not always getting like a buy low opportunity. You're not always maybe even winning. Sometimes you got to do deals to get you in a better position. But honestly, the wide receivers this year have been. We got CeeDee Lamb struggling with no Dak. We've had Tyreek Hill on the struggle bus. It's really been Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson and pretty much nobody else, especially with Malik Neighbors going down the pie hole these last few weeks. So definitely go target some Malik Neighbors. I think he can help provide and stabilize your wide receiver room going down the stretch. Now, my next player we're going to talk about as a must-buy for Week 11 fantasy football, it's going to be Chase Brown for the Cincinnati Bengals. And Chase Brown, the Lightning to Zach Moss's Thunder, and then we see, of course, Zach Moss go out with the injury, and then Chase Brown over pretty much the last 3 weeks, 11, 26, and 22 fantasy points. And this is him putting up 22.4 fantasy points versus Baltimore, which is a great defense in full PPR. And when we start to look at his next kind of schedules, the Chargers defense has been pretty good against the run. He's got a bye in Week 12, then Pittsburgh in Week 13, Dallas in Week 14, but this is where it gets juicy in the playoffs. Week 15 versus Tennessee, I love that matchup. Week 16 versus Cleveland isn't the best, but Chase Brown has pretty much been matchup proof because he's getting the receptions with Joe Burrow. So it makes me super excited. Chase Brown is the RB13 right now in fantasy football. They signed Khalil Herbert, but Khalil Herbert's going to be sliding into that Zach Moss role. So as long as Chase Brown is out there making plays, Chase Brown is a guy that we want to be going out and trading for in our league, especially if you need some running back depth. And we talk, like, if we're looking at some of these trades, the first one that comes up, Chase Brown for Brian Thomas. Hey, with no Trevor Lawrence potentially for the foreseeable future, I don't know how we can continue to kind of like rely on a guy like Brian Thomas. It stinks. He's had an amazing rookie level campaign, but we saw with some of these guys losing their top tier quarterback, like we said, like with a CeeDee Lamb, even the elite guys get hurt. Brian Thomas is going to be in the same way. So I prefer Chase Brown there. Someone down tiered off of CeeDee Lamb for T. Higgins and Chase Brown. Absolutely love that deal. Give me the Chase Brown and T. Higgins side there. We can scroll down just a little bit. Some of these are some bigger deals. Someone traded AJ Brown down tier to Devontae Smith, Chase Brown. I probably still want the AJ Brown side there, but I would understand if you need running back and wide receiver depth. Someone traded Austin Eckler, Jerry Jeudy, Nick Chubb, straight up that DeAndre Swift. I prefer Chase Brown at this point over DeAndre Swift, and you guys all know that I love some DeAndre Swift. But yeah, Chase Brown, my next guy that I'm buying in fantasy football. I think he's an absolutely great buy. Okay, my third buy that you need to be buying for fantasy football heading into Week 11, it's going to be Garrett Wilson, the guy, the jersey behind me. Right now, the wide receiver 3 in overall fantasy, and this last week versus Arizona, it was a little bit of a down day. Garrett Wilson put up 9.1 fantasy points in full PPR versus Arizona. Wasn't the best day. 6 targets, 5 receptions for 41 yards. Didn't score a touchdown. We understand this Jets team, things are going down the pooper. We got Aaron Rodgers, can't seem to scramble. They signed Devontae Adams. Things are just going downhill. Especially if they're going to be losing a lot more games, which it just kind of continues to look like they're losing, then that's only going to benefit a guy like Garrett Wilson as they continue to throw the ball in the second half. And I understand Garrett Wilson he's out on the outskirts where he's not necessarily viewed as an elite level wide receiver yet, but a lot of people have been super happy with his production. So if maybe you're super heavy at the running back position and you need some wide receiver help, like let's go look at some trades. Okay, first off, no one's doing this top tier one. So if anyone is looking at this, yes, clearly not. Like I said, this is pulling, this is fantasy football trade calculator database. So they pull from a bunch of different sources on real life trades. So, of course, there's people that are getting absolutely hosed and or getting swindled, losing out on their league. But like Garrett Wilson for CeeDee Lamb straight up, give me Garrett Wilson because he's got a quarterback there, which is crazy to say. Garrett Wilson for Kyren Williams. I still lean Kyren Williams side there, but then like a Garrett Wilson for Tyreek Hill, give me the Garrett Wilson side over Tyreek Hill, even after everything that we saw. CJ Stroud, Garrett Wilson for Malik Neighbors, Patrick Mahomes. Probably lean the Malik Neighbors, Patrick Mahomes side there as much as Garrett Wilson's been absolutely balling. Garrett Wilson for Breece Hall. That's crazy. A few weeks ago, you might not be even debating this. Right now, you probably are debating this. And I would take the Garrett Wilson side over Breece Hall at this point. So I think there are some interesting moves to be making for Garrett Wilson. So let me know what you're thinking of these Garrett Wilson trades. Let me know what you're thinking about him because I've been absolutely happy to see Garrett Wilson continue to pop off for fantasy football. My fourth buy for this video, it's going to be Marvin Harrison Jr. for the Arizona Cardinals in this Week 10 game versus the Jets. Marvin Harrison Jr. got back on track, 5 targets, 5 receptions for 54 yards and a total touchdown. Now, surprisingly, Marvin Harrison Jr. has had maybe the quietest 6 touchdown season through the first 10 weeks. And it's a lot of that just based on the expectations that we had for Marvin Harrison Jr. We thought he was going to be unworldly like a Malik Neighbors has been. And so with Malik Neighbors doing it and not Marvin Harrison Jr., I understand why a lot of people are feeling a sort of type of way about Marvin Harrison Jr. But going forward, I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is an absolutely elite level wide receiver. When we're looking at his schedule going forward, Seattle, Minnesota, Seattle, New England, Carolina, like he has a lot of juicy matchups. And especially with how Kyler Murray has been performing, I think we need to continue to take a look at Marvin Harrison Jr. because I think he could be a back end wide receiver 1, where right now he is kind of a middling wide receiver 2 at this point. So when we start to take some look at some trades that have happened over these last 2 days for Marvin Harrison Jr., Marvin Harrison Jr. for Tank Dell. Clearly you're going Marvin Harrison Jr. there. Marvin Harrison Jr., Ken Walker for Malik Neighbors, Travis Etienne. Give me the Marvin Harrison Jr., Ken Walker side. Someone traded DeAndre Swift for Marvin Harrison Jr., Nick Chubb. Give me the Marvin Harrison Jr., Nick Chubb. Mike Evans for Marvin Harrison Jr., Javonte. Give me the Marvin Harrison Jr. side there. Someone traded away Nico Collins for Marvin Harrison Jr. and Tyrone Tracy. Give me the Marvin Harrison Jr. and Tyrone Tracy side. So like we said, we understand that sometimes you want to get out on these players. Sometimes you want to make trades, but I do think the market is pretty much cooled on Marvin Harrison Jr. So I'm 100% cool to go offer and go try to trade for Marvin Harrison Jr., especially if he can be my wide receiver 2 on a team. I think that could definitely help out. Like we said, a lot of my teams at this point feel very RB top heavy because the wide receivers have been absolutely atrocious this year. And I'll bring you my last and final buy for Week 11 fantasy football. It is going to be Kyle Pitts. And Kyle Pitts right now is sliding in as the tight end 6. So if you're one of those teams that you don't have Brock Bowers, you don't have Trey McBride, you don't have Travis Kelce, pretty much everybody else has been kind of like it's been so-so. But Kyle Pitts is the guy for me that going forward, he continues to get the target share and things just kind of continue to pick up. Now, the last 2 weeks, it's been down weeks for Kyle Pitts compared to when he put up like 4 straight weeks of double-digit fantasy points between weeks 5 and weeks 8. Week 9, 2 fantasy points and 9 fantasy points in week 10 versus New Orleans. They're going up against Denver this week, which honestly, Denver's pass defense has been very good against wide receivers. So we'll have to see how that's going to impact. It's been so-so against tight ends, but I do think Kyle Pitts coming down the stretch versus Chargers, versus Minnesota, versus Vegas, versus the Giants is very good for the playoffs. So I think getting into a tight end like a Kyle Pitts now is someone that I'm trying to do. Now, we never like to really fully pay up for tight ends, but this is the point in the season where if your tight end spot is the weakest position on your team, we don't want that to hinder us from getting to a fantasy football championship. So let's say this Kyle Pitts for T. Higgins trade. If you would have asked me this in week 3 or week 4, I would have said, of course not. I'm taking T. Higgins for sure. Now, I think I still take T. Higgins here, but I think there is a little bit of a debate on who, if you absolutely need some help at the tight end position, you could lean Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts for Cortland Sutton, that's 100% I'm taking Kyle Pitts for. Kyle Pitts for Jacoby Myers, give me Kyle Pitts there. I think the key is going to be Kyle Pitts sneaking him in like a 2-for-1 type deal, where we look at this, like Kyle Pitts and Nico Collins for Tank Dell and Kyren Williams, 100% give me the Kyle Pitts and Nico Collins side there. Kyle Pitts for TJ Hawkinson, I of course want Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts, Raheem Mostert for TJ Hawkinson. Maybe you can trade TJ Hawkinson straight up for Kyle Pitts, which I would prefer Kyle Pitts rest of the season. Even a guy like Alad McConkey for a Kyle Pitts. Like if you have some ancillary pieces on the end that potentially like we said, like you have a lad, someone that you picked off of waivers that's been doing very good and the wide receiver, but maybe he's your wide receiver 4 and we're able to go get an upgrade at the tight end position if you absolutely need it. That's something that I'm looking to do. So if you like fantasy football, if you like winning, we are so close to 4,000 subscribers. Once you guys here in the community, I'm answering every start sit question this season. We are streaming on Wednesday and Friday of this week. So I appreciate you guys so much for tuning in. Check out these 2 videos if you haven't, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.